He is saying that he would rather put 2 Americans on government entitlements with a student loan on their back rather than giving them a job. And
I agree wholeheartedly with you. But do you think it was a coincidence that he speaks out this weekend when this gentleman, and I'm going to play the clip for you, also speaks out this weekend on immigration reform?
So if it looks like a candidate and talks like a candidate, is it a candidate? I'm asking about this guy, Jeb Bush.
We need to elect candidates that have a vision that is bigger and broader, and candidates that are organized around winning the election, not making a point.
I take that as Jeb Bush, son of a president, brother of a president, thinking about him running himself, says he'll decide by the end of the year.
There's been a lot of conversation around Jeb Bush over the last couple of months, particularly as Chris Christie's star has fallen, and the conversation is really centered on the idea that this is a guy who is electable.
And also wandering into what has become quicksand for Republican candidates in recent years, the immigration issue.
Yes, they broke the law, but it's not a felony. It's an act of love.
Can Jeb Bush sell that in Iowa, in South Carolina?
It's difficult, John, I think. You know, he's been trying to sort of make this case, walk it forward ever since he left office, and really obviously had a lot of support from Hispanic voters in Florida, and that was part of his broad appeal. That's what a lot of people like about him still.
Can Republicans step into that, the dissatisfaction, the complaints of the Latino community, and try to turn that?
Well, there certainly is an opening here. I mean, over the last couple of years, the narrative has really been that Democrats have a lock on the Hispanic vote because of some of the things that Republicans have said and voted for on immigration reform. But there's a lot of anger in the Hispanic community over deportations. You hear this line about Obama calling him the deporter-in-chief. That has really kind of taken hold. You hear it a lot on Hispanic media. So there is certainly an opening there. The question is what Republicans do to try to capitalize on that.
Michael, is it an act of love to break the law?
No, it's not. There's a law, and we have to enforce that law, whether or not some people like it. You know, we have a process out there for changing the law, but it is the law. And we can't I had a very good friend of mine who mentioned to me once, to have laws without consequence is to have anarchy and no law at all. I believe that strongly.
Well said. Well said. We're talking tonight with Michael Vasquez, who was running in the Congressional District 22 out of New York. He has resigned from that commission, that position of thought, at least, and is now supporting Claudia Tenney. We were expecting her tonight. Unfortunately, she will not be with us. But nonetheless, there is hope in New York against Richard Hanna. And the reason why I brought up the fact, Michael, that Governor Jeb Bush makes those remarks this weekend, is simply that it appears to be, and I don't know, a lot of people think there is a bunch of us that sit around with tinfoil on our head mastering conspiracy theorems so that we can entertain the left. But it is no coincidence that all of a sudden over the weekend, those that we would consider moderate, which is another name for Rhino, suddenly become strengthened and emboldened to come out and say that immigration reform must be built on feelings of love and satisfaction rather than on the law and consequence, and that to maintain a hold on the future of the GOP, we must placate to the Latino and Hispanic communities. Your thoughts, do we have to placate? Do we have to appease? Is that our new strategy, and is it working?
No, we don't. And I've spoken to many Latinos, and I am a Latino, so people have to understand that I do know about this because I've had this conversation, and I've had a lot of people come up and ask me about it. So you asked two parts to that. Let me answer the first one. Is why is this happening? Why did we see this over the last weekend? A lot of these moderates, or rhinos, liberals, if you want to call them, like Richard Hanna, have come out and made statements and enforced the immigration because they're afraid. And many of these representatives, at least in Congress, in the House of Representatives, they're not facing any other competition on the Democrat side. in my district, the 22nd district as an example, the Democrats gave up. They have given up on all the people. They have no candidate. They didn't put one out. They didn't have anyone doing petitions. They gave up on the race because they know they can't win. So when Representative Hanna is looking at the numbers going into a general race and even in the Republican race, he's saying to himself, I need to grab all of those independents that lean towards the Republican side. I need to grab all of those Republicans that might, on the social issues, lean towards the Democrat side. And he's trying to grab those. He's basically being the Democrat for the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we're hearing that talk. They're afraid of that competition, and they realize that when they're faced up against a solid Republican, they're faced against a solid conservative, someone who has the values that the people actually have, that they don't stand up. Their votes don't hold water, so they need to find another way to try and hold on to their position. So let me address the other part of the question that you had, which is, do we have to appease the Latinos? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's a difference between pandering to people and actually making legislation and doing the right thing. And some of those moderates out there, they lost that. And that's because they're not trying to actually do the right thing. They're just trying to appease so they can maintain their power. They're out there to do whatever it takes to keep their position, I believe. If you speak to the Latino community... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go right ahead. If you speak to the Latino community, what should we expect?
Well, the Latino community is a community of family, strong values, a solid work ethic. They are the Republican and conservative parties. They are. Mm-hmm. The only thing that they aren't is connected, because we're seeing situations like I got in Broome County where when someone comes up to speak, we have some people who want to stick into the old party mentality of, well, we don't know you, so you can't speak. They're being shut out. That's where their anger comes from, and they're looking for an outlet on it. What we need to do is what we've said in 2011 and 2012, is we need to be more inclusive. Let's hear the other voices. Let's take a look at our parties from the outside and look at what's going on, because obviously the people who are inside are too connected to the issues or too stubborn to address the issues. And we need to hear those outside voices that are there waiting and ready to join in because they have the same core values. They just want to be heard. That's how we resolve this. That's how we address this. We don't have to appease them. We just have to include them.